Let's talk about how to transfer property from a person to an LLC. This is an important document because this is an important process because if you own property, whether it is a real estate or anything else, at some point you really want to protect yourself by actually having a company sort of represent the interest in that property. So here's an overview I want you to pay attention to. Let's say you want to protect yourself from tax liabilities related to your investments, right? So if you own investment properties, that may mean transferring ownership from you as an individual to a limited liability company or LLC. And if you own multiple properties, you might consider forming multiple LLCs to protect each rental property from any claims against your other properties and also minimize your personal liability. So we're talking here about a series LLC. Let me first talk to you about the benefits of transferring property from an individual to LLC. So you have there are three main benefits. You have financial protection, you have management flexibility, and you have privacy. So when we talk about financial protection, well, this is pretty simple. Transferring your rental property to an LLC from individual ownership primarily protects your personal finances from any liabilities against the property. For example, if real estate investors currently own rental real estate and someone files a claim against the property, the owners will have personal liability if it were owned by them. If, however, you transfer ownership of the rental property from an individual to an LLC, your personal assets are shielded from potential lawsuits or claims by the added layer of liability protection. When we talk about management flexibility, well, additionally, transferring ownership to an LLC means more flexibility in managing the investment property. And so this is kind of cool. An LLC structure allows for multiple owners and facilitates the transfer of ownership interest, which can be really beneficial for assets involving multiple stakeholders. Okay. And should your LLC decide to take on employees, you will not be paying them personally, but rather the LLC will be paying them, will be paid their salary. Additionally, the LLC will be responsible for paying employee income tax. So this is kind of cool. And also privacy. This is another element that we love with LLCs. Boss, welcome back to the show. We really appreciate having you here. Make yourself comfortable. You are going to enjoy today's conversation. Let's talk about property financing. So how do you finance your property? So as you prepare to transfer title of your rental property from yourself to an LLC, it's important to really talk to your lender because there could be some complications or there could be some clauses that may be adversarial to you. When you purchase the property, your name and financials were used and you still have an obligation to pay the mortgage, right? You got to be clear on that. So without having any credit history or established income, your LLC will be unable to be the buyer under a new mortgage because you need to have a personal credit, but you also need to have business credit, your PAYDES score. So it's possible that your lender will be willing to transfer the property title without removing you as the mortgage holder, but otherwise you may have to sign a personal guarantee to pay the mortgage if the LLC is unable to do so. Okay, so those are important elements. Now, another possibility, because there are always possibilities here, another possibility is that your lender could require you to pay the mortgage in full and pursue new financing elsewhere. For example, if you currently have a mortgage with Bank of America and you want to transfer property title to an LLC, Bank of America can say, listen, pay us the full amount that you owe, and then you can go look for a mortgage with Chase or Citi or Wells Fargo. So this is why you need to learn what your own lender requires before attempting to transfer title from yourself to an LLC. This is really essential. Remember, the company is not yours. You may actually enjoy the benefits of the property right now, blah, 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 but it's not yours, okay? The property, you are actually paying a mortgage to the actual owner of the company. So this is why you need to speak to that owner before making any decision, especially when you are thinking about making decisions that have a long-term consequence, okay? Those decisions that have a long-term consequence, like if you have a property like title transfer, those have a long-term sort of consequence attached to them. So please, you want to call your lender and make sure that any decision you reach with them, those decisions are in writing. You want to have everything in writing. Very important. Boss, I want to quickly remind you of today's topic. We are having a conversation about how to transfer property from a person to an LLC. Let's talk about forming an LLC for your property. It's really important to understand that for the purposes of owning individual properties, forming an LLC involves first choosing the name for your LLC, and again, that name must reflect the nature of your business entity and contain the words limited liability company, LLC, or L.L.C. depending on your location. Additionally, you will need to name a registered agent for your LLC. Although you can serve as the registered agent, there may be reasons you choose to hire someone else to act as your LLC's registered agent, including privacy. You do not want to mingle personal affairs with business affairs. If you are your own LLC's registered agent, your name and address will be part of the public record of your LLC, and you do not want that. Now let's talk about the paperwork required for forming an LLC. There are a few pieces of paperwork needed for forming an LLC. First up, you will want to prepare an internal document known as an operating agreement. This will not be filed with the state, but will guide you moving forward. So this is important. In essence, an operating agreement, think of it as the blueprint for your business, for your LLC. You will need to file articles of organization with whichever agency or office handles business filings within your particular state. And LLCs can be formed online or in person. So in order to complete the LLC forms, you will typically need the name of the LLC, the address of the LLC's place of business, the purpose of the business of the LLC, the name of the manager of the LLC, the name and address of your registered agent, and your signature. Okay. And in terms of fees vary by state, but most states charge around $100 to file articles of organization for a new LLC. And additional LLC professional fees may actually be assessed in states that offer expedited processing. Okay, so look for that if you are really you are in a rush. Now there are some financial requirements for forming an LLC. An employer identification number is the federal EIN is the federal tax ID number. This is kind of similar to a social security number, and so it's a 9-digit EIN number. You'll need that as well, and also you need to open an LLC bank account. Okay, very important. So let's talk about how do you transfer title of a property from a person to an LLC. So now that you have set up your LLC, you can transfer your rental property from yourself to the LLC. In order to do this, you will need to obtain a deed form. So I want you to remember that deed form. Your choices are between a warranty deed and a quitclaim deed. So those are two important words to remember: warranty deed and quitclaim deed. Since you want to transfer rental property from yourself to your own LLC, a quitclaim deed form may be sufficient, but this is up to you. A quitclaim deed merely transfers ownership and makes no guarantee that the title is good, or even if you own the property and are able to transfer it. When you purchased the rental property from the previous owner, a warranty deed was more than likely issued by the title company in order to guarantee the title was free and clear. You may wish to obtain a warranty deed in order to protect the LLC if there is any issue with the title discovered later on. There also may be closing costs associated with any such real estate title transfer. You will need to actually consult your title company regarding the amount. Okay, so this is very important. And one thing I want to say here is that basically fees vary by state, but most states charge around $100 to file articles of organization for no LLC. Now, in terms of things about warranty, things about deeds, those depend upon the specific property as well and the agency. Now, when we talk about the real estate deal, you remember when you have decided which deed you will use, complete the forms carefully, making sure to match your name to your legal documents as well as the LLC's names exactly. It has to be exact. You will also need to record the purchase price, and if there is none, you will need to check with the county office in charge of recording deeds for any requirements or minimum amounts. Additionally, you want to make sure that you meet any signature requirements, such as signing in front of a notary or having a separate party, such as your registered agent, signing on behalf of the LLC. Boss, I want to quickly remind you of today's topic. We are having a conversation about how to transfer a property from a person to an LLC. So one thing I want you to really pay attention to here is that you need to record the new deed for the LLC. Okay. So in order for the deed to be recognized, you will need to file the paperwork with the appropriate office, which is most commonly the county recorder's office. And there may be fees associated with registering the deed. You will need to check with your local county offices for specific information. Although what we have found in our research is that the national average cost of recording a new deed is approximately $125. Now, some states might be a little higher. For instance, in Florida, in California, in Texas, the fees are a little higher. But again, you have to see what's applicable to your specific area. And also, when we talk about property leases, you need to really pay attention to that also, because if you're trying to transfer property from a person to an LLC, property leases may be a little tricky. So now that your property is owned by the LLC, you will need to update all legal paperwork, all related paperwork also, particularly any lease agreements. Moving forward, your tenants should be paying rent to a separate bank account owned by the LLC and no longer to you as an individual. You got to have that, because otherwise you're not really officializing the segregation of your LLC from yourself. Okay. And the more separated your finances are from the LLC, the more liability protection there is for your personal finances. Okay. In other words, if something were to happen, if somebody were to sue you, basically you have a corporate veil around you. But if you do not have this, if you do not have a process in place whereby you are separating your personal finances from your business finances, then a court of law may actually pierce. It's called piercing the corporate veil. Okay, so those are an important element, especially when you have multiple properties. If you have one property, okay, that's not a problem. If you have multiple properties, then the financial and legal implications of liability, of personal liability, could be really big, could be significant, and you really want to curb that by having the proper separation of personal affairs from business affairs. Let's talk about the tax implications of transferring your property to an LLC. First of all, the tax consequences of transferring property to an LLC may vary based on your specific tax jurisdiction. Okay, so if you are, let's say, in New York versus California versus Delaware versus Georgia versus Wyoming, every situation is different. Okay, it's better to consult a tax professional to determine whether or not your individual circumstances benefit from the transfer and any potential drawbacks from doing so. Okay, and one thing I need to say here is that when we talk about a tax professional, you can actually reach out to a CPA, a certified public accountant. You can reach out to an EA, an enrolled agent, or you can reach out to a tax attorney. Those three categories of tax professionals should be able to help you out. And so remember, while an LLC is a pass-through entity for tax purposes, meaning that the profits and losses pass through to the members' individual tax returns, there could be tax consequences associated with the property transfer itself. This may include transfer taxes, recording fees, or potential capital gains taxes, depending on the circumstances. So it's important to understand that. One thing I want to say is that you need to understand that an LLC can access certain tax benefits that were not available to you as an individual. So you are able to have considerable savings. Okay, but it's important to really understand, again, all situations are different. This is why you want to reach out to an attorney, a tax professional to kind of help you out. Okay, because the experience will vary between individual situations. And but generally, transferring property from an individual to an LLC is beneficial tax-wise, because you are able to lower the tax burden by allowing a greater degree of flexibility in terms of deductions and other tax advantages. So you are really good to go. But again, the bottom line, and I want to insist on that, the bottom line here is that you want to always consult a tax advisor for assistance in filing year-end taxes for your LLC. That way you are clear that all laws are followed, all regulations are abided by, and everything else is in check, right? So this is important to think of it that way. Let's talk about transferring property from an S corporation to an LLC. This is another element to really think about. Another possibility is that you have already established an S corp and want to transfer your rental property to an LLC. This can be done one of two ways: by converting your S corporation to an LLC or transferring the property itself. So when transferring property to an LLC from an S corporation, you need to understand that the S corporation must acknowledge gain or loss on the distribution. So there are specific parameters for a tax-free transfer, but you should really consult tax experts for further requirements and any tax consequences depending on your location. Okay. And let's talk about avoiding property tax reassessments in California, for instance. Remember, California law, if you have an LLC in California, or you have real estate in California, you want to listen to this very, very carefully. California law requires a property tax reassessments when the property is transferred from one person to another, which can be very expensive. So in order to avoid property reassessment when transferring to an LLC, the individual transferring the rental property must own 50% of the LLC. And if the owner of the LLC decides to transfer ownership of more than 50%, a property tax reassessment will be required. The property's fair market value will be reassessed upon the death of the LLC owner and property taxes adjusted. Okay, so this is something you need to really pay attention to. It's one of those things where it becomes more complicated. If I could use this tautology here, it can be very complicated if you are a foreign LLC with investments in California. Okay, it can be complicated. Now, if you want to know more about that scenario, let us know in the comment section, and we'll certainly explain to you further. So, transferring the title of your investment property from individual ownership to an LLC is a good start at protecting your personal assets, but it's not just one step. You should also review your current insurance and consider whether or not your liability coverage sufficiently meets your needs if a claim is made against you. So, because at the end of the day, if liability protection is one of your your core goals, you want to be sure that after the transfer, you are still covered anyway. Thank you so much for your attention. I really appreciate it. To this conversation, I was just talking to you about how to transfer property from a person to an LLC. I gave you the overview, and then I spoke to you a little bit about how to transfer title of a property from a person to an LLC, the tax implications, and also the financing part of things. Thank you so much. God bless you. I'll speak to you another time. Until then, remember, stay marvelous.